and then I hit record, then if you want to admit people early, that's up to you.
I'll do it as soon as you give me hosting privileges, I'll go ahead and admit them all.
Okay. All right. So now we're live streaming.
All right. Thank you. And more. Welcome. I'm just going to make a few of you co-hosts once I'm able.
All right, and then let me just hit record. Record to the cloud. Okay, and you're going to be host. And I'm going to lose all hosting. So
okay.
Make host. And one last thing before I go, make someone a co-host.
Of course. Yes, as soon as I'm able. I've been waiting. It still had not given me the capability as of yet. Oh, there I go.
You should have it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ben. I really appreciate it.
All
right. All right. Take
Have
care.
a good meeting.
Thank you. Welcome. Welcome. We're just going to give a few more minutes before we get started. And as I make a few of you co-hosts, Ellen, I've already given you that capability. Thank you so much for giving
That's a mistake. I can cut people off.
And
recording in progress.
Let me turn this.
John Keller, is that you? Oh my goodness, John. We've got to be the last of the old guard.
Ellen, how are you?
All right, how are you?
Let me get my old guard face on. How are you doing?
Well, just living large, surviving COVID.
Yeah, that's right. Surviving COVID is living large. Yeah.
How about yourself? Everybody safe and healthy, you know?
Yeah, actually, well, we all got, the kids came home from, my kids are in college now. And they both came home from, Christmas holiday break and went to see Spider-Man and brought, Omicron home. And it was fine. We were all fine. We were all vaccinated. There was a skit on Saturday Night Live where the guy who plays Biden said, "You know why Omicron is spreading? Spider-Man." And I said, "Yep, that's how we got it." So it's good to see you again. It's been a long time since those Friday nights and Saturday mornings at 2.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has.
God. Yeah, such memories. But I just thought I'd jump onto the meeting and just
hang out, right?
Yeah,
it's a pleasure to have you, John. Honestly, it's always great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I try to stay out of the way because I'm,
you've been there, done that.
Yeah, well, and also it's, it's a new.
Yes, good evening all. Elaine Williams Bethay here. Can anyone hear me or everyone?
We can. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
And I have made Tamara, please unmute yourself because I feel like I'm saying it wrong. Tamira, I believe it is, right?
Can anybody else hear that music or is that just me?
I hear it now.
I hear it now that you've unmuted yourself.
I don't know where it's coming from. It's driving me crazy. Okay, let me mute myself.
It's probably on your back end on whatever device you're on.
It's probably my son's video game. Okay.
All right.
They love it.
6 o'clock and I am going to just let in Superintendent Kelly McGuire has joined us. I will go ahead and make you a co-host. Emily Helmstrong, thank you so much for joining us. I am and for passing the torch. I've made you a co-host, just in case if you see anybody that needs to be let in.
That's so lovely.
Hey,
Kelly
Emily, good
McGuire.
to see
Hi,
you.
everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining. And let me introduce myself. My name is Lupe Hernandez.
Mhm.
I am new to the Community Education Council for District 2. And
Okay.
I have been a part of the Students with Disability Committee prior to my membership at with CEC. And thank you, Emily, for all of the work that you've done. And I've worked alongside her, as well as some other parent-led organizations such as Press and ECC. And we are an Students Adequate Quality Education, AQE. So I'm glad to have our first Students with Disability Committee meeting for this year, and my apologies. We've had a lot of work on the groundwork, helping families individually.
Mhm.
We hope tonight to really just connect and build community and sharing stories of what may have been some issues that you all have been dealing with. Some of the main topics that we will be discussing tonight will be SIRS and addressing any schools that may or may not be implementing this program. Maybe they did that first semester. I know a few parents reached out to me and we were able to re-implement that program into their schools. And then I've recently heard from some families where the SIRS program was not being offered at all. So this is a great concern for all of us, including Superintendent Kelly McGuire, and we definitely want to help address these issues so that we can try to find solutions as quickly as possible. Summer Rising was just announced, and we definitely have some confirmed schools in our district, and I believe we are hoping to add maybe one more in Midtown, and we'll be able to put that in the chat. And then we'll end with just a roundtable. I do have Mark Sarabian well on time, and I wanted to give him an opportunity that he was able to lend his time to us and just address some of the concerns we were getting from families regarding their assistant technology and having a better streamline between the years, especially during the transitions from elementary school into middle school, as well as middle school into high school, and having the software and the teachers be aligned with the families on what capabilities are available to the iPads that some of these students are using as communication and assistant technology devices. Mark, let me give ahead and put you as a co-host, but you should be able to unmute yourself and address our community.
Hi, thanks for the invitation. Sorry, I don't have much time tonight, but I'll come back again. I know you have a lot of, assistive tech is really broad. So if you have any questions, you can ask them right now, but it's a very broad topic for everything from communication devices to tools for kids with dyslexia. We have assistive technology teams, obviously, that are supposed to do the evaluations, but with 227,000 kids with disabilities and a team of 50 people, that's not happening. So the new focus is really trying to decentralize this so that what these teams will do now is try to empower your local school team through Zoom mentoring. So hopefully that will work. That's something they're trying to do, but it's the only reasonable thing that's going to happen. What I do is I have a free clinic. You're always welcome to contact me, and I try to get you up and started too. Starting first with one of the things that Lupe mentioned in regards to the iPads that were given by the DOE. Any of the iPads or the tools that were given by the DOE during the pandemic, they're not modifiable, folks. You can't turn on the tools that you need. You can't add things to it. So that's really not going to help much. If you have an iPad, though, that's been given to a child from the school or from the DOE's assistive tech team, those are also hard to modify, but at least you have ways to, people to contact the IT person for the school or the actual assistive technology team. A lot of the tools that you have at home have resources built into them. And I could always come back and give you a presentation on how to use what you have. If you have a computer of any kind within the past 5 years, or if you have a cell phone, not a flip phone, but a cell phone that actually is a smartphone that has apps on it, Android or iOS, Apple, there are enough features built into those tools to help people with vision problems, hearing problems, and every learning problem you can imagine. There are also free apps out there for communication, believe it or not, that we can talk about. But the thing is that every child's needs are so, precise, because this isn't just about finding one tool that helps everybody who's dyslexic, that everybody needs an evaluation. And the two ways to go about it is to ask the school system itself to do the eval. And if it's just for, say, a slight need, like perhaps support for reading, or if it's a complex need, asking the D75 or a CAT team, as they're called. The thing that you have to do, though, that's the hardest thing, is to make sure it's considered in the first place. So you really have to pay attention to CSIS. When you're in the IEP meeting, whoever's reading CSIS to everybody, even though it's supposed to be projected, whoever's reading it to them is going to pass over that question typically. The reason why is not really ever malicious. It's that they don't know what it's for. They get to a question that says, does child need assistive tech? Well, I don't know. And they move on to the next question. No, you don't do that. You have a group discussion. And if you all agree, we don't know, then you need to get an expert who does know in that meeting. That question is tabled for now. Because if you don't know, then you don't know. And that's the biggest problem we face. There's plenty of money out there for assistive tech in the DOE. And there's actually a lot of people that could actually train you in it if we can get a hold of them. The problem is nobody asks for it. That's the first problem. So especially for kids with learning disabilities, because we're all waiting for the approaches, the interventions that we're trying to get in place to work. What is the kid doing tonight for homework? That's your bigger question. They need help right now. So a kid should be able to listen to a book while he's learning to read in school, so that he can stay in that class and stay active. And a lot of you are hacking this at home. And I'm here to help you hack it a little better. Are there any specific questions that people are facing right now that they want to ask while I'm here? I know this, I'm just kind of going really quickly, but.
No, we appreciate your time. And I know this time is very short, and we'll definitely plan a presentation in the future. If there's anyone in the community that would like to raise their hand, feel free to take a moment to address any issues you may be having with assistant technology.
Well, I'm glad for that information. Elaine Williams-Bethay here. What I was doing, since I live in Chelsea down the block from Quest to Learn, I would take the iPad to the Apple store, and a sixth grader, seventh grader, they just, the boys, they're a little silly. So they fixed it the first time, gave another one, replaced it, and then the second time the screen cracked again, and then they said, no, we can't do it. You take it to the school. I took it to the school. Lo and behold, there was some feedback, but subsequently it took a little time. He did get one, so it's nice to know that Mark, how do you pronounce your last name? Saribi. Yeah, that should be always brought up, because this is what these children are learning on with their teachers. So yeah, very
Thank
good.
you, Elaine. Ellen, and then we'll have Tam.
Mark, can you do your speech on universal design for learning?
That you guys just had 2 years of universal design for learning that was forced upon you and forced upon all the teachers. As someone who teaches teachers for a living, I can tell you that nobody was prepared, obviously, if you didn't figure that out yet. But after they started getting the hang of it, what's really sad is they built all these digital materials. So for any child that needs materials in a computerized form, were made. Kids with physical disabilities, vision, and kids with learning disabilities all needed those materials to be accessible. That was the start toward universal design, and it was great. The problem is everybody was in such a rush to get back to the classroom that there was no real transition from most schools to taking those digital materials and bringing them into the classroom. So we had this experiment in UDL and we just shelved it. So what you really want to ask your teachers is what happened to that stuff? And if a teacher has a nice bookcase of all of these, wonderful books for their kids to read, they should also have a digital library of materials for kids to read. And that helps kids who are English language learners. It helps everyone. So that we're finally prepared. There is no excuse across the city for us not going toward more universally designed classrooms. No excuse. That should be on Carolyn Quintana's agenda, Chancellor Banks' agenda, everybody's agenda. He keeps talking about remote learning. You got to go beyond remote learning. We have to have hybrid learning opportunities. So please really pressure your school systems to reclaim all that stuff they made and make sure that it's available to all kids. It's really
And can you add something about people with 504 plans?
well. I'm not sure we're going, Ellen, but they're entitled to assistive tech, of course, right? And matter of fact, as far as I'm concerned, we really want to trial these tools with absolutely every kid there is, even before they struggle, even before there's a problem. We want kids to master these alternative pencils so that if their friend needs it, they know it. If they need it, they know there's another path for them to go. But kids with 504s are entitled to assistive tech evals as well. Is that what you're getting at, Ellen? Or
There's a parent on Kim West who had some questions at our IEP conference about 504 plans. So I just wanted to make sure that people knew that a 504 plan existed and can include assistive tech.
yeah, but I just got off a call with the UFT with a whole bunch of OTs, PTs, and other therapists. I just left that call, and what we said to her, because they're being asked to do these local evaluations, they're all anxious about it. And all I said to them is just find one tool, help a kid in one way. That kid will really take it from there. Once the kid realizes that there's another way to do things, that's all you have to tell them. They will find the other ways to do things. But if they believe that there's only one right way to do things, like this is what reading is, and I can't listen to a book, then they're never going to look because they're going to think they're going to get in trouble. So it's about giving kids permission to try alternative paths to literacy and so forth. And trust me, according to the research, no child is going to give up on learning to read. The opposite is going to happen. They're going to love stories so much more because you were reading to them when they were little, that they're going to pursue more reading skills. That's the research proves it. So we have tons of research to also help your cause. If anybody in any 504, any IEP meeting says to you, well, we don't want to use a communication device because it'll keep the kid from talking, or we don't want you to use, this text-to-speech reader because it'll keep the kid from reading, just look at them and say, could you please show me your research? Because I have research to the counter. They don't have any research to support those naive assumptions. None. Promise, I'm a researcher. That's what I do for a living. So they don't. And that's just nicely call it out, please. Faulty neuroscience.
Okay, we have a couple more questions and one question in the chat. I know we only have you for just a moment time. Tam and then Beth, and then anyone else, you can put it in the chat and I can always email him. And he's been very, very responsive in getting back to us. So thank you.
Hi, thank you. And thank you, Mark, for that information. I would love to pick your brain at some other point in time when you have the leisure of time. You kind of hit on my question about speech recognition software and the availability to educators in public schools, and what there is, like what we can ask for, what our SLT might be able to talk about in terms of what's available for dyslexic students, but also for students with ADHD, where speech recognition, voice to text, talking calculators, different types of software that engage visual learners like Photoshop, Premiere. So I'm not exactly sure what the DOE has in terms of licensing or, the budget, or do schools have a set budget per student, and how we would acquire that technology.
Well, two parts to that. Right? Two parts. One part is the school doesn't pay for assistive tech. It comes from IDEA funds, come from DOE Central. It does not come from the school. They're given a budget a lot to work with, but that budget can be expanded if kids have more needs. It's federal money, number one. I wish we could dig up how that money's being spent. So there's no limit to that. We have $15,000 eye tracking systems and remote robots for kids that can't go to class. So we have the money for it. Two, with regards to the assistive tech, there's a lot of things you can do right now. So all of the kids during the pandemic discovered that voice typing built into Google Docs was available. They were all speaking their papers and typing them that way. They were saving time. That's built in. And there's another app that you can download for free that will actually read back what you wrote. The biggest problem for using these tools in classrooms is no one should object to them, but the kid has to be able to talk to it without any disruption. So I usually use voice dictation for home use, usually. And then for in school, we use word prediction, which is something that needs to be purchased by the DOE. Word predictions help them start phonetically typing a word and actually gives them content specific words so they can type more quickly. Far better than the word prediction on your phone, trust me. And then the other problem in a classroom is that when you use text to speech where things are read back to you, actually, Ellen, use the AT help one, it's better. When you use text to speech to have things read back to you, voice dictation is difficult for kids who are dyslexic because now they have to go back and edit it. So they have to make sure they have a tool that also reads it back to them, because it's really miserable to get out all their ideas and then to not be able to read it themselves. So that's why we got to refine this loop of what's the tool the kid needs for this and the tool the kid needs for that. And kids with handwriting issues or dysgraphia or kids with any physical challenges in actually doing work, not only do we need tools for writing, but you have to remember we need tools for math, because they got to be able to line up math problems. And that's really a huge challenge people seem to forget. So anyway, Google Docs is actually filled, and I'm going to put this link into the chat. It's a lot of resources in there. Google Docs has all these built-in tools that are basically free that can help kids read web pages, help them type their, with their voice, help them listen to what they typed and so forth. And so we really want to make sure that everybody has these tools so that the kids, the most important thing about assistive tech beyond sustaining engagement is that we want the children to avoid ever declining in their desire to learn. That's our biggest worry, that their interest in learning starts to wane as the therapies are trying to take hold and these kids are waiting us out. And that's our biggest worry. So can we keep them up here loving learning while they're gaining independent skills? That's our real goal. And I speak from experience because my nephew, who's dyslexic, was diagnosed as clinically depressed because he waited 3 years for these interventions and was denied assistive technology, and he just gave up. It wasn't until they let me get involved that he decided that these tools would give him another path and he's back on track. So that's what we have to avoid. That's the part that I'm most worried about. Beth?
Go ahead, Beth.
Hi. Okay. Mark, I met you over the summer with my daughter, Sarah, so I have a middle school daughter who is dyslexic. We requested assistive technology during the summer, and we got the evaluation. I just wanted everyone to know it takes time. So it took 3 months just to have them set up the appointment for her to be evaluated. And it was an outside agency that came in, and I was amazed at how they evaluated her and everything that they tested her on to see what would work with her, what doesn't work with her. And then it's just now that she's getting the computer with the attachments for the assistive tech. And this was started in August. So it does take a long time, but you have to be on top of them. And this, you can't really say, oh, I need this, I need that. The outside agency that came in really goes through everything with the student to see what will work for them.
But I really, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, and I was amazed at all the things that are actually really available now.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that's what's really important is while you're waiting for that, there should be resources. And that's what we want the schools to do. Learn how to help right this minute while we're waiting for what you just waited for. And even with augmentative communication, there's actually a free app out there for augmentative communication that's wonderful. So there's a lot of things we can do right now, and that's what we need to change the conversation, not waiting for these evals, but we need the evals because you need a legal path to preserve that for that kid all the way into college. I assure you, if he's not getting assistive tech now, it's sometimes hard to get it in college. So yeah, we want that legal path. There was another comment here about Son worried that speech to text is seen as cheating. Oh yeah, the stigma, especially in middle school, of using assistive tech and not wanting to look different than your peers is a huge thing. The pandemic helped get rid of some of that, but that needs to change. And the attitude is not coming from the kids, actually, it's coming from the teachers. The teachers make our kids feel self-conscious about using these tools, and they need to get over it, because these tools are actually helping them do their job. If a kid's using word prediction, he's not running to the teacher to ask, how do you spell this word? And he's using larger vocabulary. So how is that a problem? You know, kids listening to their own writing, kids listening to books. Gee, that would be a horrible thing if kids learned how to listen better. So there's a lot of beautiful side effects to all of this. And there really are no negatives. And I dare anybody. We need a panel, Ellen, where we just challenge the folks that are naysayers. So that would be fun.
That leads to my next question, actually, Mark, because a parent expressed concerns about struggling with some teachers really doing their best to follow the IEP and creating a very open space for children to be able to use this assistance technology, and then others that are very reluctant and continue to maybe the child using the assistant technology, but sends homework in written form as opposed to digitally. And then what would a parent do if, I guess, their device maybe is from the pandemic and they're not able to use, are they able to access these Google Docs that you've put in the chat with that device?
If it's a Chromebook, some of it may work.
But the iPad, no, right?
No,
so does a parent have to then at their next IEP request for a different assistant technology?
Yeah, because those tools that were sent home were just for pandemic use.
Right.
Okay? They're a whole different department. And then tools that you want are specialized to that child. But in the meantime, there are things you can do with the tools that you have at home. And that's what we could do a new presentation on all the things you have at home. That should be our presentation. The other thing you mentioned, though, was about the teachers and their perspective. I teach at a few local universities, and I'm 60 years old and my students are all in their 20s, and they know social media better than me. They know how to manipulate computers better than me, but they don't know what they're doing with them. Okay. I'm sorry. It's a generational difference. We built computers to serve a purpose. They play on computers. And that's our problem, is we're not teaching teachers how to use them for education. So when they see it come into the class, they see it as, oh, that's a crutch for the child. And what I actually empower some of my kids to say to their teachers, ask her if it's a crutch for her when she does her work. There's a little hypocrisy there, don't you think? So if my kids are really taking a lot of heat from a teacher, I literally ask them to go and say, Miss, but don't you do all your work by computer? When will I start to be able to do that? Because in high school, everybody has to type. Nobody hands in handwritten stuff in high school. So the whole thing is that the kids need to see us have a different perspective. And if a teacher's getting in the way, call them out really nicely. Literally say, why do you think this is a problem with him using this tool right now? Please tell me. They're not going to have a stance. And the funny thing is the Board of Ed's stance is on their website. The Board of Ed, I think, is the most progressive institution on the face of the earth on paper. Okay, on paper. And so that's what's really important to look at, is that they're saying assistive tech is a service. They're saying assistive tech is useful. They're saying it's empowering. So I'm using their own words against them. So if any teacher has a problem with this, number one, send them my way, free trainings for schools. Number two, just really nicely, sweetly call them out and say, please tell me why that's your stance, because they won't have anything to back it up. That's the best way to play lawyer with for your own kid.
Nice, nice.
One last question I want to, and Faiza, if you can clarify, just making sure. She's asking if allergies would count as a disability. She does have a 504 for her child that has allergies. Are you asking, would assistant technology be eligible for your son due to or child due to allergies, or just in general?
Just in general, I think this discussion is fascinating. Thank you so much. Someone mentioned a 504, so I just, wanted to know. I'm sorry if this is inappropriate right now. If it's not, I just thought this is the time to ask.
Not at all. And you know what? What's really interesting is it's not just one final thought, because I got to go into a meeting, but my whole perspective on assistive tech is that the students have taught me that they're not broken. The school system's broken. And that's not just me being cute. That's factual.
That's a fact,
It's the
yeah.
tasks that are broken. The tasks are not accessible. So assistive tech is not to fix the kid, it's to fix the task. So just keep it like that. So if you have allergies and you can't focus and you can't really attend and you can't, get your work done, there's probably a tool to help you get it done.
She has anxiety. She
Right.
has anxiety, and she's missed 2 days of school because she was in the ER with anaphylactic shock. So I was like, it has to be some way. She's not sick. She's just,
Right.
anyways. Yeah.
So, but there might be tools to help her get her work done. That's all our goal is. Fix the tasks, fix it, get done. But I'll gladly come back and we can, and if you guys decide what kind of topics you really want to focus on, we can really get deeply into some particular.
Definitely have you back. Thank you so much, Mark. And I see
pleasure.
he did put his
Yes.
email
Yes.
in at help@me.com. Please feel free to reach out to him. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Some of the things that Mark was touching on, especially when it comes to your IEPs and being recognized for your student needing this assistant technology, and if not knowing on your team, really reaching out to the experts and get evaluated. I think that is a great segue to introducing Ellen, who has been in her work in special education has been long-term, and she serves on the CCHS as well. Not CCHC for special education. So please, Ellen, one of the concerns we wanted to talk to you about is that second grade to third grade getting identified. The K through second grade is pretty crucial, and every time and every day that's wasted really takes away from the child being able to get that assistance and support needed for them to learn fully and richly and meaningfully. So if you don't mind, and then please introduce yourself with full titles and all. I apologize.
My name's Ellen McHugh. I live in Brooklyn in District 20, which covers Bay Ridge, Bensonhurst, and Dyker Heights, in case anybody needs the geographic info. My son, and it took me years to do this, as a bilateral, let me start again. As a bilateral auditory sensory neural processing hearing impairment. He's deaf, but you learn to use you need to learn to use the lingo that the DOE uses so that you can level the playing field. I hate that phrase, but if you don't know the lingo, then people can tell you anything. And that's always been an issue for me. I'm currently a co-president of the CCSE, the Citywide Council on Special Ed. To go back to the evaluation piece, one of the things that families don't always do, most of us have a good relationship with school. The teacher's nice, the principal seems okay. You're a little worried, they're a little worried, everybody's a little worried, but you're not sure, what to be worried about until things get so pointed that you realize somewhere along the line that you missed something. So anything you request should be in writing. And the letter that you're going to write or the email that you're going to write is very simple. It's my name is Ellen McHugh, my son's name is, his date of birth is, his identification number is, and he's currently in Miss So-and-so's class in room 101 at PS 204. That happens to be where my son went. Then the second paragraph is going to be your question. I have some concerns and I've expressed them to you. As you know, I'm going to use Rook. Rook has a hearing loss and he doesn't seem to be acquiring language as he should. I'd like to come and speak with the IEP team regarding that. And then your last paragraph should be, thank you very much for your time and effort on behalf of my child. Please respond to me within 10 business days of the date of the receipt of this note. It doesn't mean that they're going to respond to you with a date for a meeting, but you don't want things to roll off the table. And in truth, if it's really an emergency, you can ask for 5 business days from the date of the receipt of the letter. Or you can say, I need to talk to you tomorrow. I don't know that tomorrow is going to be on the teacher's radar, but you can certainly ask. But everything you ask has to be in writing. And when we go back to in-person, no side conversations, no, come here, I want to talk to you, kind of thing in the hallway. It's disconcerting anyway. So what you need is time, and you need to gather your thoughts, and you can say to the person who says to you, come here, I want to talk to you. I'd really like to talk to you, but I'm on my way to work. I'm on my way to pick up my children. I'm really not prepared. I'd like to set up an appointment. I can certainly meet with you on Wednesday at 12 o'clock, or we can have a telephone conversation, something like that. This is a professional relationship. Unless you go to lunch with these guys, go out and have a drink, and your kids play with their kids, this is a business deal. I know it sounds cold, but it is a business deal. If you are asking for a specific evaluation because you've noticed that your son or your daughter is not picking up language, is struggling, is crying at night, and you go to a meeting and somebody says to you, well, he doesn't do that here or she doesn't do that there. If that is something that's happening, maybe you can take a 10-second clip. You don't want to make the child feel like he or she is being used as a battering ram, but you also don't want someone, and it happens, who says, that never happens here. He never expresses his frustration that way here. She never seems to have a problem here. So you want to be more proactive. Of course, the other end of the argument is if your child is sitting in the corner in the back in the dark, not participating, and no one has brought that to your attention, you might want to ask for a meeting, especially if the child comes home and says, I can't do this. The other thing is, if this is an initial and a first time request that you have asked for an evaluation and a team looks at it and decides not to do it, you have the right to sit down with the principal and have a discussion about why the team decided not to do it. The review team at the school or IEP team at the school gets your request and says, oh, this is a good idea, this is a bad idea. Once your child has been determined to be in need of special education services, you are a full and equal member of the IEP team. The knowledge and information that you bring carries exactly the same weight as the knowledge and information that a school psychologist brings, that a teacher brings. The law is very clear. You are a full and equal participant in the creation of the IEP and the selection of placement and program. And full and equal means that you need to be informed. And for most of us, the people with the most information about school issues are the people at the school. So they need to inform you. They can't say, oh yeah, but later, or not right now. You need to be fully informed in order to make a decision. One of the other problems that happens many times is that people, they look at their watch. I got 20 minutes. Okay, I got 20 minutes too. What would you like to discuss in the 20 minutes? And let's set up another meeting. right away, everybody goes, oh, God. Excuse me.
A lot of times, I think we've all experienced a lot of what Ellen just described. I know I have, and I'm sure a lot of you have.
Yes.
And I think Ellen raises a great point as far as your child's best. You are a better expert of your child, more so than the school psychologist, who may have spent some time observing your child in classroom, but and the social worker as well, but you are the expert, first
That's
and
true.
foremost. So
Yes.
Elaine,
Ye-
did you
Yes.
okay, go
On,
ahead.
on both notes, Elaine Williams Bethay here referenced my grandson Justin Bethay at Quest to Learn. Ms. Hernandez, I know you're a busy beaver, but I sent you an email 2 days ago. Did you receive it? Yes. Okay.
Yes,
So I'm
I
just
love what your program is doing, and I would love for you to share in your in the chat. I had that planned during our roundtable. We were going to share a lot of information, and we'd love to schedule a time for you to come and speak and have more time. Just for time's sake, just because we did have Ellen already scheduled and Mark came in to be able to lend some of his assistant technology consultant information that was asked. But no, thank you so much, Elaine.
Did you see what she just did? She just followed up on an email that was 2 days old. You can follow up on an email that was 2 days old.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Of course not.
Absolutely.
Hi, guys. I know you've been buried in email. I really want to bring this up again.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the other part of it is, like I said, as tough as it is to say this is a business deal, so you need to be as adamant as you would be if you were calling, somebody who was repairing windows or the building manager to get your heat on. You're just as firm, not screaming and yelling. You're just firm.
Right.
Stand there on your own 2 feet, which is part of it. And the other part of some of the advocacy pieces, one of the things you should look at is something called Wright's Law, WRIGHTSLAW. Pete and Pamela Wright are lawyers, and they handled the case for that pretty much established the Carter School and the, not Carter School funding, but her name was Amy Carter. And her family had been telling the district, not here in New York City, but across in Florida, I believe, for a while, that she was not doing well. She was not doing well. And she was sort of bumping along. She wasn't doing great in the classroom, but she made enough of a mark that she could get past things. They took her out and put her in a non-public school at great expense to themselves. And within a year, she had gained quite a bit as far as skills. They went back and filed a complaint against the community school board where they were from in Florida. And it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. So the issue is, you don't wait to fail, you intervene prior to. There are signs. You cannot wait to fail. And this child was failing, so you wanted someone there. The other part of this is that even though none of us are lawyers, you want to be sure that you're informed. And sometimes, just as Mark said, if people don't know the answer, many times they'll just gloss over it, or they'll give you, I'll get back to you on that. I don't know if anybody remembers Groucho Marx, but I always have this feeling, you're gonna get me. Follow up, don't. And I see in the chat that people are discussing schools. The issue isn't, you can certainly recommend a school, but the school has to be right for your child. It's not that the school is right for just you.
Absolutely.
The school is right for everybody. The school has to be right for the child.
Yeah, has to fit.
So in the long run, I've known people who have looked at 25 schools. That's a bit obsessive, but you also know if you're, as I said, Rourke was deaf, so he had a specific issue, and there weren't that many sites. And I went to visit them, but you also know when you walk in the door whether you feel welcome. I remember walking into one school, the big sign, it said parents welcome here, and then an arrow said please sign in and provide ID. Just like, which way are we going on this? Am I welcome, or is this, don't let me in unless I can prove to you who I am? You don't want to be in a spot where it seems like everything has to be proven before you can participate. We are part of the CCSE is part of the legally mandated policy consultants. I love that, from the law.
Right.
Education law 2590 A through G addresses the Department of Ed, as we call it, but the state still recognizes it as the Board of Education, right up through and including the citywide councils and the local CECs. You should familiarize yourself with that, not only because it's a good thing to know the ed law, but because those of you who are members want to be sure of your footing when addressing superintendents or other staff in a professional way. They're supposed to come to the CECs and citywides when there is a policy change. We all know there are days when I think that they get up on a Wednesday and say, I'm going to change everything today. Nobody can be part of everything, but a policy change that's going to affect children in the district is something that has to be discussed with the citywide, with the community education councils. Take advantage of it. Come to the meetings with questions prepared. Submit your questions to the individual prior, especially if you're talking to somebody who's coming, say, with information about after school programs or sports programs. That it happens to be a big bugaboo of mine. That's my son had very little language for years, but he was fast and he loved sports. And the problem became that while the school had after school sports, the buses were like, oh no, you can't stay after 2:40 or you can't stay after 2:50 or whatever. It was a long drawn out battle, but because the law says that a child shall have accessibility to all programs supported by the community school district, we did get grudgingly, I must say, really grudgingly, busing home from school, from after school.
From after school, because that's really unusual. And we've been fighting. Ellen and I were with Parents to Improve Public Transportation, PIS, and we're definitely fighting to that end, especially. And that was some of the questions we had for you: busing regarding summer rising, even special education services being provided for summer rising this year. I think they really dropped the ball last summer. And what can we do to help advocate to make sure that these schools, I'll just tell you my experience, the school that my son attended had no idea. I'm just going to mute you, Elaine. I apologize. Had no idea that they were supposed to be implementing related services to any of the children at their program. And had I not gotten in contact with the special education of our district and have them contact the school, and the principal was very grateful, but it wasn't until the very last week that they got services. The entire summer went by and the school just had no idea that they were even supposed to be doing this until I brought it to their attention, and it took some time. So I'm trying to be proactive this year, and applications haven't been opened up just yet, but I want to make sure we get the schools to be really aware that it was funded for this, for students to be able to receive these services. And And then to also be able to get busing to and from adequately, especially for our most vulnerable students.
The
And
busing
Pam,
person that you want to reach out to is Kevin Moran.
yes, and I plan on attending D75. They're going to be hosting both OPT for a live discussion and question and answer forum, which I will definitely be attending that.
The other person you want to reach out to, of course, is, although this sounds grandiose, Chancellor Banks and Deputy Chancellor Carolyn Quintana.
For those of you that were on our town hall with Chancellor, I was lucky enough to ask a question on behalf of students with disability, and it was regarding our busing failures, epic failures over the years. And I'm hoping I've followed up with an email with him, but again, I gotta send another one, hold his feet to the fire, and make sure that they give us the time and the space to address these long, ongoing issues, again, to the most vulnerable. And it affects not just students with disability, but also a very large portion of the students in temporary housing. Tam, I apologize. Thank you for being so patient. One of our committee members, and she has a question for you, Ellen, if you don't mind.
Anything but my weight.
Oh God, I can relate to so much that you said. Thank you so much. It's just really nice to just hear everything reiterated. My son was in early intervention at 2 years old, has been through, CPSE, CPE, CSE, went to public school with an ICT, and he's 11 now, and he's about to go to middle school. And it is crazy that during, the past 9 years, I'm still learning and I'm still battling like the bureaucracy and the phone calls and trying to get through. But what I have noticed is school by school and district by district, how it's easier to get your voice heard. I know I'm trying to help a family in District 20 right now who English isn't their first language. They're immigrants. They have 2 kids with disabilities, and they didn't know anything about the Turning 5 process, even though their son is in CPSE at a center-based preschool. And so just trying to navigate that for them, I'm like, oh my God, I can't get a hold of anybody. It's like leaving all of these messages, and it's like, this is really, really hard, especially if you don't understand your rights or the language. But that aside, I was just thinking back to early intervention, but it led me to ask you this question, because I've seen this discrepancy like a lot at our school, where parents are requesting in writing, asking for full neuropsych evaluations from the DOE instead of buying them or funding them themselves outside independently from the DOE. And it's strange that some students actually the majority of students don't receive an okay on that through our school. And then some once in a while will, like my son didn't have any problem. But I also know a lot, it's like a push. So I'm wondering if there's like a base criterion, like how does it work? How do you deny somebody, as the team, how do they deny a request for the full neuropsych? And does it happen in kindergarten and 3rd grade? Or can it happen at any time? Because I know that was life-changing for my son. This is a year ago during the pandemic, so a year and a half ago. And what they did was, wow, like it helped me understand him better, but it also helped the teachers who read it. They actually read it. They actually read it to help him in class. They're like, oh, he has ADHD, like this makes sense. Like we could do this and this. And it's like, he's grown so much since then. And why can't every parent have, the right to have somebody really take a deep, deep look at their child in that way? So I'm just curious if there's what I can tell parents at our school who are really disappointed that they're not able to get that.
It depends on what so it depends on how you ask for it, of course, in many ways, but it also depends on the child's classification in some cases, and it depends an awful lot on availability. You heard Mark say that they have 50 people to handle all 1,800 schools that have assistive technology devices. The number and type of therapists that the DOE have available has dwindled, like with most others, either because people have just said, enough, or because they've moved on somewhere else and gone into private practice or whatever. The request needs to be based on a reason. You can't say I want a neuropsych without some sort of reason. So if you're noticing that your child has tremendous issues with executive functioning, keeping himself organized, keeping herself on task in the classroom. If you notice, the other thing, of course, is always to talk to the staff, to the teacher who works with your child the most often, to get him or her on your side, because a lot of times the second person in the quest for the evaluation carries some weight. And although I hate to say this, lastly, people have learned to say no. They've just learned to say no. And if we are looking at, say, a child with autism or a child who has other emotional overlays to his or her disability, please don't use the word comorbid. People like to medicalize disability, and we should be getting away from the medical standard. So when somebody says to you, well, he has comorbid issues, ask them not to use the phrase. And secondly, ask them to describe what they mean by comorbid issues. Anyway, to go back to that, say why he needs it. Don't just say, I think I want a neuropsych, or my friend told me to get a neuropsych, or I'm Mrs. Jones and I want a neuropsych for my daughter. You have to give a reason, like anything else. What have you noticed? And again, if they deny you, they have to give you a reason. They can't say, no, we're not going to do it. They have to give you a reason. They have to say, we've done a neuropsych, or we feel that yada, yada, yada. Or they can't just say to you, no, we're not going to do it. They have to give you a reason.
Does that have to be in writing, Ellen?
Well, it should be.
It should
I
be,
would
right?
request it in writing. If somebody says to you, well, Mr. McHugh, we're not going to give you a neuropsych because we don't believe that a hearing loss has that type of effect on a child. When I get home, I sit down and write, thanks for your time today. I appreciate the time you've given me to discuss Rourke's issues. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that you're not going to allow a neuropsych because you feel that deafness doesn't generate the need for a neuropsych. I'd really like some time to talk to you about this. I am available on Tuesday at 2:00, on Friday. You could say, as you know, I work full-time or part-time. I'm available to talk during my lunch hours on any day, or I'm available on Friday morning at 10:00 and on Thursday at 2:00. Give them 3 options.
And can you appeal what their decision is?
Sure. Most people think they have to go to court. A family with a child with an IEP has what are called due process rights, or as the Board of Education likes to refer to it, escalation. So you sit at an IEP meeting, you make a request both in writing and orally that you want a neuropsych. In writing and orally, they tell you no where, no way, no how. You have the right to ask for mediation. If mediation doesn't, well, no, let me go back. You have the right to ask for another team to take a look at it, a fresh pair of eyes. Ask for the person at the school who is the most knowledgeable. They used to call them administrators of special ed, and I can't remember what the phrase is now. Ask for a second team to take a look at it. If that's not going to work, ask for mediation. There's something very aptly called the Peace Institute. It's located in downtown Brooklyn. The woman's name is Carol Lieb, Lieb, like boy, Himes, Himes, and they will assign a mediator. The positive part of that is that it takes some of the sting out of your request. The negative side is that the mediator is not going to be somebody who's knowledgeable about special education, but is knowledgeable about how to get folks to talk to each other. The next step is always to apply for an impartial hearing. An impartial hearing is it's a hearing. It is not suing. You're not suing, not yet. God willing, you don't have to. An impartial hearing is an administrative hearing. The individual is usually, well, in New York City, the individual is a lawyer, and he or she is there not to protect your rights and not to inform you, but to make sure that things proceed according to law. In many cases, people feel they have to bring a lawyer. No, that's true if you have a very complicated issue. It's not necessarily true in all cases. It's nerve-wracking, it's scary. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're going to be padding around the house saying, why the hell did I ask for this? But it is the fourth step essentially in the process. After the impartial hearing, you have the right to appeal if you feel that the hearing result was not to your liking, as well as the DOE has the right to appeal, and it goes to a state review officer, and he will make it's not just there is a he who is the head, but there are other people that work with the state review office to make a determination. Sometimes they come down hard on the side of the parent, sometimes they come down hard on the side of the district, and sometimes they come right up in the middle and agree to parts, not to others. But that is the process.
Are those kind of cases backed up the same way that Carter cases have been in these past, for a really long time, but.
Well, the Carter cases, in my experience and from what I understand from other people who are handling them, most of the impartial hearings are being called for what's called enhanced rates.
Right.
The DOE does not, when you're outside the DOE and you're a speech and language therapist, I think you make not $90 a half an hour. I think the DOE, don't quote me, I think the DOE pays 55 or something along those lines. You can't get a speech and language provider because they're short-staffed at school. You take your request for that speech and language provider that everybody has agreed is necessary to Mr. Jones, Mrs. Smith, to Brooklyn College Speech and Language Center, and they all say to him, no way, I can't, we can't do that for that price. Or so people apply for what's called an enhanced rate. That's most of the time. I think it's 85% of the impartial hearings are based on that. The Carter cases are another thing. The mayor Mayor de Blasio made this broad statement about how he was going to be sure that everybody's going to get what they need and you're not going to have to fight over it. And, I say that at Christmas too. It's like, the mayor is not, this is totally an aside, which is why I'm not in favor of mayoral control. Having said that, he made what he thought was a good statement, hoping that it would help people. What it did was back everything up. From October, late October, early November in 2021, there was a backlog of about 5,800 cases. Because of the pressure that families and advocates put on the DOE, they have hired more people. And the backlog has fallen to 1,700 about 3 weeks ago. It could be even lower. It's not the way you want to see things. You don't want a backlog, but it did happen because the DOE was not acting quickly enough, not, again, paying the impartial hearing officers, paying the legal people that were there. If you are a parent and you're thinking of an impartial hearing. If you prevail, win, your costs for the impartial hearing, the phrase in the law is reasonable costs reflecting the community. So, you know, in East Overshoe, New York, your lawyer is not going to be making $350 an hour. But in New York City, the lawyer might be making that. So it's reasonable localized costs are covered for the impartial hearing. That does not cover the time that your lawyer does research. So if you are seriously thinking about an impartial hearing, make sure you have all your ducks in a row. Make sure you have the latest IEP, make sure you have the latest evaluation, make sure you have the latest statements from teachers and staff. Make sure if you take your child to an outside developmental pediatrician or an outside therapist, that you have the most recent documentation, because it'll save you having the lawyer say, well, I have to have this, I have to have that, I have to have the other thing.
And stressing, I think documentation is key, and you really touched on that, but I think that needs to be stressed, that writing, keeping everything in writing, every single dialogue, even if it is taking place maybe during pickup, because a lot of teachers like to do that. It's like you're picking up your kid and let me tell you this one thing, you go home, like she said, go home and you say, it was nice speaking with you. You said this. I want to make sure this is what you said. You want to put everything in writing, all of those forms of communications with the principal, with the social worker, with the psychologist, with the teachers, therapists, related services, all of it needs to be documented, date, time, all of it. And if it was a conversation that takes place, you put that in writing. It was great speaking with you today about this, and you specify exactly, I want to make sure I understood you. This is what I heard. Please specify if I misunderstood you. And it gives them the opportunity to clarify and to clean up or change anything that you may have heard them say, because I think we've all been through, I didn't say that, or that wasn't the how the conversation went. And just remember also, I've had a lot of parents, when it comes to the IEP and you're attending and they want your signature does not state that you agree with their recommendations. And I would highly recommend you leaving with whatever recommendations they give you. If you go back in person, do not walk out of that school until you've received those papers in person, read through them. Your signature is just stating that you are there as a participant. And that's equally as important, because if you refuse to sign and they try to say that you weren't there, then that goes against you in the future trying to seek these services. So you do want to be in attendance to these IEP meetings. And if your year is coming up and they're giving you a time and date that conflicts in your schedule, you let them know, well, I'm sorry, this time does not work for me. Can you give me any other availability? This is where I'm available. And they have to comply. If that year lapse, they still have to provide the IEP meeting.
If you're getting that run around, that drop off or pickup, come here, I want to talk to you, come here, I want to talk to you. It's not a good move for anyone, because you're rushed to drop them off, you're rushed to get to work, you're rushed to bring them home. You know, you have to pick up another child at another after school program. Somebody says to you, come here, I want to talk to you. Or worse yet, if they come out and they stand in the door with the book, right away, it's a hint. This is not a good move. Don't do it. Say to them, I really appreciate your time and effort, but please, can we set up a time to talk? Don't, the book thing became most of what I'm talking about, you learn through experience, right, Lupe? The book thing became a big thing for Rourke.
Oh yeah. I think I was about to say, we all can probably have experienced this to some extent.
He was running in the hall.
Yeah.
You know, is this the end of the world? Well, Ellen, you have to, if you're going to a meeting, the other thing I would really think would be a good idea, I don't know, depending on the age of the child. So if this is a new issue, you want to say, this is why I'm here. You want to write something out so that you can change the tenor of the room, right? There's 150 people in this room and you're sitting at the end of the table like you were the last invitation for Thanksgiving dinner. Let them introduce themselves and then gets to you and you say, my name is Ellen McHugh. I prefer to be called Ellen, or I prefer to be called Mrs. McHugh, whatever, however you want to be approached, Dr. McHugh, however you want to do it. And then I'd like to read this into the record. So you have three very short paragraphs. No matter what you write, everything begins with my name is, my child's name is, blah, 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 all that. What made you ask for a referral, especially with the little ones? What did you see that wasn't typical development? Where you see the child now? For those who have been receiving special education services, how has that special education service impacted the child positively, hopefully, or not? And the last paragraph should be something, this is where I want to see my son or my daughter in 2 years. I want him or her to be able to initiate a conversation with an age-appropriate child. I want him or her to organize their books. I want him or her to be actively engaged in the classroom. Plan out for 2 years. I used to worry, where would Rook go? What would he do? Is he going to grow up? Is he going to be able to work? Is he going to fall in love? Is he going to have friends? All of that stuff is the emotional stuff, but don't try and plan out the child's life when he or she is 6. Where was the child? Why did I decide to refer this child? Where is the child now with the benefit of special education? This is what I see, and where we think he needs more or she needs more. And 2 years from now, I want to see my child successfully transition to junior high school, successfully complete successfully complete a language test or a science test, whatever it is. Don't try and grab off the world in your large chunks. You want to move incrementally, not so slow that you're a snail, but you want to move incrementally so that he can build on or she can build on past successes. And part of that, of course, is going to be considering assistive technology.
Yes.
As part of his, I'm sorry, I talked too much.
No, thank you. We have a few, I want to make sure, raise your hand if you had specific questions. I love the conversations that's happening regarding students just receiving the related services. I think briefly, one thing I want to mention, we did have Superintendent Kelly McGuire. He may come back and join us, but reach out to us, CEC members, Ellen, Superintendent Kelly McGuire. If your school is not providing the SIRS, which I've been hearing a lot, I think a few of you have even mentioned in the chat, as long as you're comfortable letting us know the name of the school, we can do our best to get these services re-implemented, because the funding was there. And if they are having a staffing issue, there are ways to resolve that and to find solutions. There are staff that I think, so PS 116 it was never offered. Ellen,
If it was never offered, I'd write the note right now, dear sir, dear madam, whatever, dear principal. Unfortunately, SIRS was never offered to my son, although I realized that the New York City Department of Education has been fully funded to offer SIRS in every school. It may be that you didn't know this, but I need, my son would benefit, my daughter would benefit. One of the problems was the implementation. So it came in waves. It was an 8-week program, things like that. And sometimes parents thought, well, at the end of the 8 weeks, I couldn't go for week 9. You can. the child's needs are what determines his or her access to SERS. The other thing you need to also be involved in is the summer program. The Division for Youth, Division for Youth and Community Development, DYCD, which is a New York City agency, was in charge of the Summer Rising last year. They were good people, I think, with the good intentions, but they repeatedly said to individuals who brought their kids there who had IEPs, we don't do that. We can't serve that. This child is too hard. It's too hot. It's too cold. It's too late. It's too early. That's not what they're there for. DYCD cannot ignore your child based on her disability. It's a violation of the child's rights.
It is.
Yep.
And my son received a para. He received a one-on-one para for Summer Rising and special education, but it took a lot of legwork. I had, not only within my school's administration, I was on them like every day saying, hey, I need to make sure my son receives his one-on-one para. I need to make sure he's getting all the related services. And even with me doing that, taking the time to get in hold of special education for Summer Rising, I did all of that prior to enrolling him. We had to make sure, because they originally wanted to put him in a special education program that was not going to offer the after school portion, and it was far away. And we all know how the busing debacle went. And I said, there's a program that can offer it right here. We found out that he could get the para there. And even still, I told you, the school was not aware that they had to implement these related services. And so it can be done. If your child needs a one-on-one, if your child has a one-on-one para during the school year, it was available to the Summer Rising program as well. You just had to do the extra legwork. And I don't know, I am trying to be as proactive as possible and seeing how we can make this year's Summer Rising program more seamless in the sense of getting these IEPs recognized and not forcing kids to have to go to a specific program, because the funding was there at least last summer. And maybe Kelly, you can let us know if the funding is going to be there for the schools to provide these same services again.
Just in defense of the schools, people weren't necessarily aware of, but in the past, what had happened when a child with an IEP was recommended for summer school, the child was usually given the opportunity to attend the summer school program in a District 75 building. That, it's not a bad thing, but it's not a good thing, because most of the kids had to travel, and depending on busing became problematic, as we all know. So, systems are huge and they're faceless, and they know a way. It's like a ball rolling down a track. It's like some screwy, when you watch movies, I forget the name of the guy, but anyway, the ball just rolls down the track. That's what they know. They don't necessarily know other things. So in that sense, I don't think that, this is my opinion, I don't think anybody gets up to work in the morning and says, I'm going to be mean, or I'm going to be unkind, or I'm not going to do it. People, most of the people I know who work for the I'd say 99 and 9/10% want to do a good job. You just need to.
The principal was so thankful that I brought it to. I mean, she could not have been and I knew it wasn't her. It was, it like you said, it's bureaucracy.
They just roll along. They
yes.
just kind of roll along, because that's what they've always done. And last year was an anomaly. This year, everybody should be, better prepared.
I was going to say, Kelly, is that something that we should be able to expect? And I don't hold you to it if it doesn't happen.
Sure you do. Sure you do. Come on.
You should hold us to it.
Okay.
So I'm just jumping back on, but what I kind of gathered was your question about whether or not Was it specific to paras or was it in
Both.
general about like services for kids with disabilities?
Both related services, as well as someone specifically asked about the one-to-one para. And I guess they were eventually, I think she said she was eventually able to get it. It just took a month. Is there anything we could do to try to hire the staff earlier, as opposed to once the kids have already started? And I know my son's been through that. His first year being assigned in kindergarten, needing a para, came in September, but due to the budget being set and his IEP hadn't even been done, we didn't get his para until February. For that new budget, for that money to be released, according to what the actual budget and demographic of enrollment was in October.
Yeah. So just in regard to summarizing, so we're at this place right now in the timeline where we are finalizing the sites. And I will say that there are far fewer sites across the city that are being used for summarizing, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I think that, I really appreciated the Chancellor Porter's vision for trying to do summarizing everywhere and anywhere and make it accessible, and just it's going to be this huge thing. And it really was a huge thing. I mean, close to 200,000 kids participated across the city. It was really great. But in this year, the plan is for it to be more consolidated, which I think will help us to, and the timeline is already, we're much further ahead in regard to that. So this week, what's really happening is that the sites are being finalized, and then schools that don't have sites in their building are being affiliated, they call it, to a specific program or a specific site that is going to have the program. Now, and I will say that later on this week, I have a meeting with the central office to hear a little bit more about the specific vision they have for how it is that they intend for summarizing to go. One thing that's really different between summarizing and traditional summer school is that traditional summer school before the pandemic was, all about mandated services. I'm sorry, students who are mandated to attend, unless we were talking about students who are attending as a part of an extended year IEP or something like that. But students who are mandated to attend then absolutely were required to have all of their services and supports in place. This year, if students are mandated to attend, I don't see, while I haven't heard it specifically, I would assume that schools would receive funding for paras or resource services or anything else that a child might with an IEP who is mandated to attend might need as a part of fully fulfilling the IEP. If students are attending the camp portion of summarizing, then I'm not exactly sure like what it is that that would be required there, but I'm happy to report back on that. One thing that makes it a little bit tricky is that is the sign up. And last year, that was probably the trickiest part of summarizing, was that all of the enrollment was going through the Department of Youth and Community Development. But this summer, all of the enrollment will go through schools. So that should help to make sure that the summarizing sites know who the students are that are coming to their building much earlier. And that should then help to make sure that those students have services and supports in place if they're a part of their IEP. So I don't know. I hope I'm saying something of value, but there are still certainly some questions that are, we're going to learn the answer to in the coming weeks. But yeah, I will be sure to share what I know with everyone as soon as I know it.
If you don't mind putting your information in the chat, there's been a lot of family members discussing whether they're not receiving sets, they have not received SIRS. When you were gone earlier, there is a school, I think it's PS 116. They have not had the SIRS program at all.
Hmm.
So I really encourage all of you to please reach out to Superintendent Kelly McGuire. He has been really helpful in reinstating some of these programs. So this would be a great line of offense, and to be able to do something actively. And please let him know the school, what it is, the services that you're not receiving, and especially when it comes to SIRS, because he has, if it's not individual sets or related services, and it is regarding the SIRS program, it is concerning to us that I'm hearing from so many schools that have not had this program implemented at all. And just so we're all clear, it was only implemented in December. So it started in December. They just finished that first session recently. And what would you say to parents that feel that their child still needed the services, but the school felt otherwise?
Negotiate.
Just
I'd be
negotiate.
talking to the principal.
Right. Okay. So go to the principal, involve Superintendent Kelly if you need to.
Right, you escalate.
Yes.
The superintendent, the principal, his or her supervisor, and hopefully there's a division of special education supports at each district. There's the special education hotline at schools.gov.nyc, at school special education at schools.nyc.gov.
And I see Erica has her hand up. I want to, only just for time, I'm hoping we can close up pretty soon, but no, Ellen, you've been amazing. You have so much knowledge to share, and I've learned so much from all of the meetings that I've been with you. So I thank you for your time.
My kids say it's like stepping on a water hose. She just spews it out.
Go ahead, Erica.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. Well, my question is, why are parents in charge of looking for providers? I was given a RSA for related services because the school couldn't find providers. And they gave me the RSA and a list of 400 pages just for one service for OT. Another 420 pages for speech and 390 for physical therapy. It's just overwhelming. As a parent, you cannot just sit there and go through the list and call every single provider to try to find someone to serve your student or your child. It's just overwhelming. Shouldn't be the responsibility of a parent to look for the providers. It's just too much. And some of these providers, they refuse to take the standard rate. They want a different amount of money. So you have to just go one by one and crossing all of them that they're not willing to take that rate. It's too much to ask for parents.
And I think you're absolutely right. There's even people saying in the chat that the list is outdated.
Yep.
There's a lot of duplicates.
Yep.
You have a lot of consultants that won't even see anyone new. They're not taking any new cases.
So just for you to have an idea, there's people in Florida in the list. There's people in Connecticut in the list. There's people that is not even in the New York City or the New York State. I mean, why a person in Florida will be in a list as a provider? It's just crazy.
You know that if you have your child has a personal care physician, you can go to the physician and ask for a recommendation within the network to do OT or PT or speech. Additionally, I would go to the OT, PT, or speech person at the school and say, you got a friend? It doesn't have to be the person on the list. As long as the individual is licensed in the area where there is a specified need, then you can contract with you're contracting, you're a private contractor with them. So you wouldn't hire a special speech and language person to do OT or PT, but you can find an OT. Some of the hospitals have OT divisions. Brooklyn College has a speech and language center. I forget the other college that's out in the center of Brooklyn because my brain is freezing. But go to your personal care physician and say, hey, give me a break. I need this. What do we got in network? You're not limited. And honest to God, a lot of times it's one-to-one referral because it's hard. The teacher, the OT at the school may have a friend who's looking for some part-time work. Ask, what could it do? They say, no, you're in the same spot. If they say yes, it's hallelujah.
Are sets and SIRS, can a parent seek compensatory damages for sets or SIRS? Or I know with related services you can, but I don't know if it's with the RSS, meaning the private outside therapists, but with
If you're
SIRS,
looking for compensatory services.
yeah, compensatory services.
That's, you document the fact that the child on September 1st was supposed to receive speech and language 3 times a week, and he or she did not receive it until November 3rd. How many periods were missed? That's the benefit of CECS as well, because as a family member, as a parent, you have access to CECS and you can see the times when the person was there. They use a phrase that I can never remember, but
And does
you'll
that
have it.
include with RSS? Meaning if the parent is like calling all these people and they still haven't been able to receive the services, would that still count?
As long as the child is not receiving the services, yes,
Okay,
it's compensatory services.
I would highly recommend that, Erica.
The other
Or-
end of that is that you don't want to not that you may want to, but say you wind up with 150 incidences that didn't happen. You want to squeeze 150 incidences into the summer program? What does your
Well, they try to do that. They will always, that's always their first option is how do we give makeup? But there's only so much time in the day for these kids. And the last thing we want to do is overwhelm them with more therapy. They need to get it in the timely manner that they're supposed to. So question, I guess, and just to be clear, does SETS or SIRS qualify for compensatory funding?
SIRS is a program that exists now, right?
Right, it's brand new. So
Yeah.
it's the first time, and
it's a special education recovery service. The implication in that statement is that it's there to provide those compensatory services because X, Y, and Z was missed. But I'm sure the superintendent also has a response to that.
okay.
Aha, I laid it at your feet. Aha.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, these situations. Okay, so these cases are like they have to be handled on an individual basis, and so. But the question is, have we as a city have we provided RSA letters, additional supports for kids who have missed services? Absolutely. And that goes for situations where we know that a child might need a specialized support, and we're anticipating not being able to provide that within a timeline. And that goes for some situations where a child may have missed some supports. But each situation really should be brought to the school. And we have there is a team of special education administrators that would need to come out and be involved in this. They have authorization to, provide the supports directly to the family at a meeting. in terms of, what that might look like, whether it's additional makeups, whether it's summer, whether it's RSA. All of those things really do go onto the table if and when services are missed. But they really need to, be, each case is unique for sure. And I've seen a lot of different things happen in my time as both a teacher and as a principal. And so I would just say that, it's important to engage right away with the school.
Someone in the chat put in that there's no login for parents. There is a login to see through your NYXA account, New York City student account. You can log in to see when services are provided for your child. You've been here a long time.
Yes, we have. I was just about to say, I think we're ready to close up. I don't know if anyone has any last minute questions or concerns. For those, we are getting ready to already schedule our next committee meeting next month. And I'm looking to be, it's either going to be the 3rd or 4th Tuesday evening of April. And I'm hoping to bring Mark back at some point. And if not April, then probably our May. And as well as Miss Elaine Williams, I'm looking forward to, you have been doing some amazing things. So if you would like to put your website in the chat. I also want to recommend Include NYC, Appleseed NYC. They are some great resources, especially helping you get through the Turning 5 process or getting through special education with early intervention, as well as preschool, as well as the Turning 5 into primary education. And is there any other last minute questions or concerns?
Is there an easy way of getting services RSA'd or some such that the school does not routinely offer, but is definitely something that's a necessity for like executive function skills? My daughter's in high school and, has been vacillating a lot. Everybody agrees on what the issues are, but there are just some things that the general DOE related service providers don't do, some of the subspecialties within their field. And, like I do have people that I've dealt with or that she's had at other times in her life that are now specialists in certain areas that I feel she really does need, because we all agree, as I said, on what the need is, but they just don't have the capacity of meeting it in a certain way so that my daughter can flourish and assimilate the necessary skills. So I've posed with them, about having some of it RSA'd, and they don't know exactly how, and they're supposed to be conferring with somebody else how to do it. And I really need to get the process hastened because, we're already 2/3 through the school year.
Is that a statement or a question?
No, a question, like, is there an avenue or a way? And when I mentioned earlier, I've gone through due process and, all that at the Brooklyn building, years ago to get her into, she was given the wrong elementary school placement. And I had to keep her out a year in order. And, then we had gotten a lot of services RSA'd because she didn't have it because she wasn't officially in school. And, they were completely wrong in what they had done and refusing to change it and this and that. But granted, it's my time and her life lost. And now we're at a crossroad of development where it's got to happen or it's not going to happen ever, because it just, old dogs, new tricks kind of thing. And
I'm not sure what the question is.
But I think
how to
she's
get
asking
services RSA that are not, it's like one of the things are for OT. There's like the Traumatis reading program and a few things like that that deal very specifically in certain ways that are proven to be beneficial for executive function skills of organizing, listening, reading, and being able to pick out the most important statement that's, they're reading or things like that, that my daughter struggles with now. She can do it, but she's also very slow, time management and different things that they really, they're great at doing graphomotor skills and things like that in OT in school, but some of these higher function things, they just don't have the equipment and capacity to do. It's a specialty within. And the school isn't sure how, we all agree on the need, but we're cycling. She does have, like sets and things like that, where she gets the academic support, but within that, she needs internal things to help her assimilate the support so that it's incorporated in skill development versus it just being help.
I think I understand. She's asking, like, you mean services, therapy services, like, and this definitely wouldn't be for your child, but like my son was doing social skills play, which was not provided by the school. It was something outsourced.
Right, something like that. Like, how do I get it done through the school? I've tried through the insurance company to see if they would do it, and they don't even know what I'm talking about, kind of thing.
Have you gone through the Office of People with Developmental Disability?
No.
OPWDD. I think
Okay.
that would be a great step, especially if the child isn't 18 yet, and if there is an executive functioning cognitive delay there, that she may qualify and be eligible.
There was a traumatic thing that happened that set her back a little bit, and
Are you saying that you want the school to purchase a specific program?
No, I have a provider that will do it, that will help her. I believe that this will work for her because it's, I've spoken with the provider. During the pandemic, my daughter looked the provider up online because she always swore that she was the best OT she ever had. And now she does this other stuff with the Tomatis reading program and different things that really, what I read about it makes perfect sense for what my daughter needs, but it's not something that in her school anyway, they're offering. So the provider had said, to see with the school if they could do it RSA, then I could bring her down there. I've done, RSA services years ago when she was younger. So that I was just wondering if there's a way of hastening this process, otherwise she'll be graduating by the time I go through my due process and all that other nonsense, which, as I wrote, yeah, in theory, it's great, but in reality, it's a lot of energy and a lot of time that is really unnecessary. As everybody's parents know their child, as you said, we're an equal partner. So if we're saying this is what the child needs and we're all in agreement, what is the holdup with it? That,
Can I ask Lisa a question?
Yeah, please.
Can I just ask, I guess I'm curious in terms of when services, when there is a consideration of services, we always first want to make sure that we always first prioritize trying to meet the needs of the child in the school with the staff that are there and the providers that are there. If there are services and supports that the school does not feel that they can provide, the question, I guess, then can sometimes turn to an RSA or outside provider. However, I would say that this can't just be something that is, developed by solely by the IEP team. So I'm wondering if there is a reevaluation or a new report that indicates that there is a service that is needed.
I had a neuropsych done with her during the pandemic, and they're hesitant to implement some of the things. It's also the school has been going through a lot of administration changes and this and that, so it's hard because there's follow through issues. It's not that they're ignoring it or anything. They just honestly don't know how to implement some of this or where to go. So the time it takes them to find out the information for everybody, I'm just trying to hasten getting the information and get the process moving along if it's a possibility, because I think this is one thing, that has not been tried. She starts to make progress and then, glitches happen, and the consistency hasn't been there in terms of, as I said, with administration. So it's been a rocky road for a while. Hopefully it's starting to get resolved, but the problem is I'm running out of time to wait for the resolutions and everything to happen. You know, as I said, she lost a year in school to begin with. She's a year delayed because of that,
Yeah.
because of DOE glitches.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I'm just speaking generally in terms of,
Right. In fact,
so-
then there was somebody, Jerry Donegan, who was District 2, and he was part of the team in the meeting, and I spoke with him, and, you know, he put everything in place, and it happened. I went with a different issue to the District 2 office, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, and maybe a little bit more, and they had moved all the senior people out to Brooklyn, because I guess they were having a big problem in Brooklyn. And the people that were there didn't know how to do it. When she transitioned from middle school, from elementary to middle school, things came off of her IEP that shouldn't. It was, as far as anybody could see in her current school, a typographical error type thing. But nobody knew how to correct it. And we went through this, and, you know, there are only so many issues I can fight and take care of. And it still is a sore point for my daughter because she knows she needs the services she's not getting.
Yeah.
I did have a reevaluation, and instead of giving she has low muscle tone, one of the issues, so she needs PT, and they wanted to give her adaptive phys ed. Adapting to use your muscles differently than helping your body be as strong as it can be are very different. And the person who offered that didn't get it. And I had a DOE person, you know, who wrote the eval and made the suggestions and this and that, and she was physically functioning way below her age level. But yet it didn't, you know, and I have to decide, you know, do I sit and help her get homework done, or do I sit and put the time into fighting for that? I only have so much, you know, and the way the system is, it kind of wears the parent down. And that's why a lot of kids fall through and don't get the services they need. And it's really a shame because there are a lot of great providers there who are willing and could, but there's so much red tape for the school and the parent and the providers and the IEP meetings. And even they did my daughter's IEP during the pandemic, and there's information in there that is so wrong. I don't know where it came from.
I'm just gonna, I dropped my email address in the chat. If you want to reach out to me individually, I'm happy to help with any specifics. The only thing I was, you know, just sharing generally is that, you know, the services that the services that are provided for a child with disabilities are indicated somewhere, right? Like they're indicated on the IEP or in an evaluation. And so,
you know, they're not opposed to her having it. They just don't know how to do it. That's the thing. Now, I don't know, because I think it's also New Vision school. So it's New Visions is under the district. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion and headbutting comes in, because it's almost like having two superintendents' offices.
It's the high school, correct?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes. Okay.
So
I can direct you to the right person.
Lisa, I also put into the chat, it's definitely specific, and I want to give Tam, she's been very patient, an opportunity to speak before we close out the meeting. Thank you everyone, for those of you who are unable to stay, I appreciate it, but I did put Daliz Vasquez's information, and Kelly, you shared that with me. She is the Director of Special Education of all of Manhattan, and she has also been extremely responsive. So please reach out to both our superintendent and special education. Kelly can connect you with the high school superintendent if need be, and we are here to help. So before we close out, Tam, I'd love to have you speak. Thank you so much. You've been really instrumental in sharing this space, and I hope to continue to build this community and collective with you guys. We're here to support one another and share with one another what has worked and what's not working. So go ahead, Tam.
And thanks, Lupe. And Ellen, I'd like to meet you at some point. I have to jump off too, but have a good night, everybody.
Thank you for your time. Thank you, Kelly.
On my way out now too.
Thank you, Ellen. No, much appreciated.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot. Thanks.
Thank you.
I just wanted to follow up really quickly that getting into CECS, like,
yeah.
Yeah, it's impossible for parents. I've been trying because I wanted to see what the hours were for the special education recovery services, just how they were allocated to my child, but also just in a broader sense of what parents are being told the DOE is giving them. but
Right.
actually what the school team is sort of deciding on outside of parental input or any kind of negotiation, I guess, which is weird for IEP parents or, like who are used to giving some sort of input or at least seeing a document. And so I went on NYCHA too, like previous to this meeting, and it's also not posted on there. So there's just, and maybe it's just for our school, I'm not sure, but there's nowhere for me to see where, like how it was decided and who signed off on it and who determined how many hours he would get for what service and for sets. And so I think that's where there's a lot of just like non-communication, I think, between
lack of transparency, which is
Exactly.
pretty ongoing theme with
scary
the
here
DOE.
too. Yeah, and I was just thinking about that. Like there were some parents who wanted and caregivers who wanted to come tonight, by the way, who are so excited that you're doing this. And oh my God, thank you so much for your work. Like you're amazing and you inspired so many people at our school to just get pissed and to say something. But there are some parents who are scared of the fact that this will be watched on YouTube by certain people at the school, and that there's sometimes when you speak up, there's a silent retaliation that happens. Yeah, I don't even know how to address that because I know it has to be a public meeting, but
I hate for that because I want this space to be as welcoming and open and
I know you do.
just supportive as possible. I really want to make sure that we're sharing and not taking away stories, but just more so implementing how families were able to get through some of these complicated systems that we're having to navigate. It's extremely complicated. So
yeah.
Thank you so much, Tam. You've been very,
you.
You've done amazing work with me as well. So thank you so much.
And if you figure out that thing, CECD2.
Yes, I was about to say,
everyone does.
Let's definitely ask Miss Vasquez. I think she might be able to help us with that.
Awesome. Okay,
and
thank you.
I'll be honest, Natasha, I have no idea what the actual acronym is or what it stands for, but it is where we are able to see. It's an accounting of all the related services or sets, anything that your IEP states that you're mandated for your child to receive. It's almost like a documentation of what they have received, which because they're being billed and they're having to bill that. So
I know where that's not in CECD2, it's in your actually account.
That's what I thought. The NYC.
It's on the student account, so you are able to open a parent account, and you have your children in that account. So you have to click on the name of the student, and once you click on the name of the students, it's open a big.
That's where
it says like records, and if you have an IEP, it will say IEP. Then you press in the IEP, and it has your placement, your services, and normally it has the date where it started, and then it will give you the last day that your child received services. And then for CERS, at the end of that page, it says recovery services, and you have to click there, and it takes you to another screen where you can see the related services, but the recovery services, but it doesn't show hours. It doesn't show dates. Nothing. Just kind of like a broad information for that.
Like a checkbox almost. They receive it or they're eligible to receive it.
Yes, okay. Basically.
Thank you so much, Erica. Felicia, thank you for being so patient.
Yes. Hi, how are you? Oh, excuse me. I wanted to know for the classes, since my son is in high school, the I think AP classes. I want to know why the students that have IEPs can get the extra help that they need, or the extra teacher within the classroom, or whatever the situation may be. Because a lot of students, I feel like a lot of these students, back out from the AP classes, and it's not fair to them, and they want to, take it and stuff, and it's a lot of work, and they're not getting as much help as they supposed to get.
Absolutely. That is a big myth, I think, that we need to address. Both, I mean, G&T as well, but AP classes, they are not, they cannot exclude students with learning disabilities. If your child requires even a special education teacher, meaning ICT, they should still be able to provide and take those classes. Just because a student, it requires a para for, it could be a behavioral issue, does not mean that that child is not capable of taking an AP class.
All right. And also when they graduate, can they still keep their IEP? Because I know they like to rush you off with the IEP and stuff, because we could send it over to the colleges and stuff so they can have, so they know.
Hold on to everything you have. I mean, transitioning from elementary to middle and middle to high school, you definitely want to hold on to the IEP you have. Do not let them get rid of services that you feel your child still needs.
Right.
When it comes to higher education and colleges, I know that the SUNY and CUNY both offer special education. And I actually have, if I look, you know what, I'll include this in our next meeting. I know I have contacts for transitional, and again, a lot of this information I get through Office of People with Developmental Disability, OPWDD, where they actually have a transition program for students that are graduating out of high school and how they get into college programs that do indeed provide, I don't know if it's called an IEP, but it would be something similar to what an IEP stands for in K through 12. Go ahead, Erica. It seems like she has some information
it's
to
not
share.
an IEP. You
Right.
basically, once you graduated from high school, and depending if you graduate with a diploma or not, if you are in alternate testing, you do not graduate with a diploma. But if you're not, and then you apply for college honors 504, it will give you a 504, which basically will give you accommodations, but no modifications. So for example, they can still have extra time for testing. They can have like separate rooms to take the testing. They might have, there's many accommodations that they can have, but it's not the same as an IEP.
Right.
It's very similar to a 504.
Exactly.
Okay. I'll just jump on
Yeah, because
that really
he'll be getting his Regents diploma. He's going to be getting his Regents diploma.
If you are in alternate testing, you won't get a diploma.
Say it again.
If your child is doing the alternate testing, they don't get a diploma when they graduate.
What is alternate testing?
Yeah, what is that?
So alternate testing, you have to agree in your IEP, and normally starts, so every child starts with state testing at 3rd grade. Or in New York City, I guess is when they turn 9.
In 3rd grade, it's 3rd grade here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's in 3rd grade because normally kids are 9 when they're in 3rd grade. But if your child is in 2nd grade and is already 9-year-old, they have to start taking the alternate testing if you agree. But you have to agree to that. If you do not agree, then it takes the standard testing with accommodations. But once you are in alternate testing, when you finish high school, they won't provide you with a diploma. It's a different way of graduation.
Diploma?
I mean, it's not the standard diploma because you are in a different type of testing.
But I don't think that would prohibit you from entering into higher education.
Well, it depends there's many programs nowadays that do not require a diploma. There's other type of, even for children with cognitive disabilities, most of universities now have offerings to other type of college experience. It's every case is individualized. So it doesn't mean that if you don't have a diploma, you cannot continue with your education. It just means that you have to probably look for different programs. That's it.
And I think there's an idea that once I'll just add this really quickly because this is like super interesting to me. once you graduate from high school, you lose your IEP, right? And so there's that idea of what happens when you get to college. So I teach at NYU, and I can tell you that we have a ton of supports for students with disabilities. We have the Moses Center for accommodations and testing. The only thing that we don't have is like the ICT classroom, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or, you know, speech or, you know, related services, but there's so much support and for faculty because we have very neurodiverse, you know, faculty members and staff and with physical disabilities. So you're supported. And I just wanted to say too, like to the parents here and the families here, I've seen the end product, I guess, of the IEP in my classes of those students who have had IEPs. Like we talk openly, you know, since they were very young, and they're in college, they're at NYU, they're kicking ass. I mean,
Yeah.
so there's so much, like, it's so hard right now, but like I see them and I'm like, wow, like, what kind of services did you have? Like, how was that road? And it's really, really beautiful to know that they're still taken care of, you know, like we're still taking care of them with everything that we can, but they need less, you know. It's like, it's really, really powerful stuff to see. So I just wanted to offer that for some hopefulness.
No, thank you, Tam. I appreciate it. That insight from the college itself. I also want to add what Natasha said, because it's true. A lot of colleges and universities take students that self-identify. So students that have never had an IEP through K through 12 are now self-identifying and you know, having been diagnosed very late in life that they now have dyslexia or dyscalculia. These you know, universities and colleges are way more equipped and to be able to lend this same support. Again, it will look different. It will not have goals like an IEP has. You will not get specific related services therapies, but there is the opportunity to lend the support that the student would need to be able to have meaningful education at this college or university.
Thank you.
Thank you, Felicia. Well, I want to thank all of you. Thank you for staying so late. And we will definitely be more mindful of time, but I did want to create a sense of community, a sense of collectiveness where we do feel open to be able to speak about things that are of concern and troubling, and ways that we can come together and even, I'm gonna mute you, sorry, Natasha, be able to come as a collective to be able to fight for what it is that we feel our kids are not receiving, especially when it is mandated services. So Natasha, did you have something you wanted to share? Please, I would love to hear from you. Thank you for your information in the chat. Well, if that would be all, I really appreciate your time, your energy, guys. Much appreciated. And we look forward to doing this again next month. Our next CEC meeting, calendar and working business meeting, I believe is April 12th, Tuesday at 6:30. So look out for that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.